Next guy we asked to come up and speak, I mentioned briefly before, a childhood friend. We met playing middle school football, banging heads against each other. We played lacrosse with and against each other. We graduated the same year. He went to the same high school as my wife. And I went to a Catholic high school. He went to the public high school. He went to Navy. I went to Cornell. We stayed in close touch. And it was interesting because my eyes kind of got open spiritually. My relationship with God became more personal and real, beginning in my sophomore and junior years at Cornell. And interestingly enough, God kind of used lacrosse to humble me through some injuries, some challenges, and got involved in a Bible study that's a lot like FCA that really dramatically impacted my life. The guy I had mentioned before played at the Naval Academy, was a Division I midfielder of the year, was a member of the U.S. national team, was a Top Gun Marine fighter pilot. After leaving the Naval Academy, went into the Marines, Top Gun fighter pilot, retired a couple years ago, finished up at the Pentagon. This guy's a competitor, and 2 or 3 years ago had an interesting experience in his life, and I just wanted you to hear from the Victory head lacrosse coach, Glen Miles. Glenny?
Thank you. Like Frank said, a lot of sports and a lot of success and a lot of blessings throughout my life. I was kind of born with a lot of that. I worked hard with some of it, but a lot of it was pretty natural. My dad was the coach, so I had it, from morning to night, learning. You should have passed it over there. You should have passed it over here. You should have gone left. You should have gone right. So it was constantly, and I was just kind of kid that loved it. So it was easy, and I just kind of went forward with it, and success kind of followed. I was a little different than Kevin, though, and Frank, that I went to church kind of every Sunday with my parents or mostly my mom, and just didn't really get as much out of it as I probably should have, or I wasn't listening as closely as maybe I should have. I was probably going over to plays from Friday's or Saturday's game on Sunday morning again. But success kind of still followed a little bit. I had some setbacks, and my senior year in high school was a little bit tough. Football was supposed to be a pretty big year. Preseason all met, and for some reason I couldn't stay in the pocket, and I just took off every time. So had a disappointing year. I think one of my receivers is here, and he's still kind of mad at me. Where are you, Lou? Basketball was supposed to be a big year. I was in a preseason picture with Dwayne Farrell, played for the Atlanta Hawks. Reggie Williams played for Denver Nuggets. And David Wingate, I think, played for the Sixers. And the second game of the season, I stepped on somebody's foot and tore the ligaments in my ankle and was out for the season. At the end of that season, I came back, made it to an All-Star game, which was kind of a gift to hopefully get recruited a little bit for basketball, and had permission from the superintendent of schools to play in that game or games. And they turned around, and I wasn't allowed to play in those games and was ineligible for my senior year of lacrosse. So pretty tough year as a senior, but it's interesting the way things work out, and I'll kind of come back to this, but there was definitely somebody looking out for me during those times, because it was exactly those events that caused me to choose the Naval Academy. And ever since, that day or that decision, a lot of good things have happened to me. Lacrosse went well at Navy with some of the stuff Frank mentioned. Great friends, great career. We went back, made it to the playoffs my senior year. Was kind of some transition years in the middle there. Came out of there. Marine Corps thing worked out pretty well. Never realized I wanted to be a pilot, but all my friends were kind of doing it, so I figured that was the most competitive thing I could do. So did that. Got fortunate enough through some relationships in the military that I was able to go to Top Gun, and that worked out to be a lot of fun. Not quite like the movie. It's not as there's no trophy. It's just a bunch of guys going to class together and flying together. But that was a lot of fun. Very, very, very competitive group. That part's pretty accurate. And lacrosse still was going on throughout that time for me. And this is where kind of my exploration, I guess, kind of starts with my relationship, just in a spiritual sense. I had all that kind of success that I shared with you, pretty positive life, Got married in 1996. Great woman of God. My wife is just a phenomenal lady, and I have all these really good things going. As far as kind of the world was concerned, this pretty successful athlete, pretty kind of successful fighter pilot, great wife, now some great kids, and I still found myself pretty lonely. Still found myself missing something. And so I kind of started really seeking a little bit more, and was fortunate enough to go up to Lake Placid in 2004, and was involved with a couple of teams then. Was not playing very good lacrosse. I kind of came out of retirement, and it was ugly, but that was okay. I was getting back into this game that I love, and was on two separate teams at the same time. Frank had invited me to play with FCA, and so I was kind of hanging out with those guys, and I was hanging out with my other team, and I felt really impacted that weekend. I was in one huddle, and I just knew something had changed. It was wrong. The huddle smelled. Some of you old guys know what I'm talking about. We were cussing. We were yelling at the ref. We were negative, and I just felt myself in that huddle, and it wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. And then when I went over and got to play with Frank and that group, and I just kind of felt something different, that God was speaking to me in a very relevant way, that my life was really ready to go in a different direction. And interestingly enough, I don't know, when you guys get kind of serious about this, listening to those voices that you hear once in a while, he really has a pretty good sense of humor, because I hadn't hit the goal that whole season. And in overtime of the sudden death game up at Lake Placid, Frank wins the face-off, and I'm cutting down the center of the field, and I'm wide open in the middle of the field. And I remember vividly thinking to myself, God, I cannot believe you would do this to me. In sudden death, down the middle of the field, I'm wide open. And unfortunately, I think Frank won the face-off out to the right, so I'm cutting across from the left wing, and I have to have it in my left hand, which I'm kind of scared about because I haven't been playing very well. So I remember putting it in my right hand just to make sure that I catch the ball. This is a midi of the year, you guys. So I put it back in my right hand, catch the ball, switch to my left hand, and I throw this ugly shot at the goalie in sudden death right after Frank wins the face-off. Goes between the goalie's legs, and we win. And I honestly, I mean, as funny as it is, it's also kind of scary, because it was no doubt in my mind that God was speaking to me at that moment, and I heard him loud and clear, and I just, at that time, have surrendered my life to Christ. And the joy that it's brought since then, and that emptiness that I talked about, is starts to be filled. And then I realized that, you know, it wasn't so much about all that worldly stuff that everybody thought I was this or that. It really is very important, and it's very personal to have that relationship with something so much bigger than yourself. And for me, since that day, Christ has helped me not be perfect, certainly not be perfect at all. You know, it's not that we become sinless, it's just that we start to try to sin less. And he's given me the power to do that, and it's been pretty special ever since. I'd love to share some more of really what's happened since that day with you guys anytime that anyone's interested. I'd be happy to share. Thanks a lot.